Good afternoon, everyone. This is Shashi Vijay, and we're about to just get started. I see some folks are still joining in. So for the folks who are already on, if we're just going to be waiting a couple more minutes, just for other folks to join in as well, and we will be starting here in just a minute or so. While we're just waiting here, I do want to go over some housekeeping rules. We'll probably go over these again as more folks come on in. So just starting over here, and just to make sure, Justin, are you online still?
Sure am. Everyone hear me all right?
Okay. Yep, we can hear you. All right, great.
Perfect.
So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the WSBA SSPS Preparing Your Practice for Sale and then Selling It webinar. My name is Shashi Vijay, and I'm the program organizer and also the chair of the CLE committee for the WSBA Solo Practice section. And this program, as you all know, is sponsored by the Solo and Small Practice section and is available to members free of cost. Today's, just taking care of some housekeeping rules and details here. Today's program has been approved for CLE credit in the state of Washington. However, if any of you are licensed in another state as well, please just check with that state bar on how to actually receive the credit for the out-of-state program. I would also just take this opportunity to remind you that this is being offered to you free of cost because of your membership in the Solo Small Practice section. So we always encourage more folks to pass on the word that for these free benefits, if you can have your colleagues and anybody whom you know who's not a part of the section to join our section. And certainly, please do reach out to any of your executive committee members of the section if you want to either participate in any webinars like this, like be a speaker, or even basically have any topic suggestions or future speaker suggestions. We would love to hear from you. You can certainly, most certainly email me at shashi@vjlawfirm.com, the same email from where you got the login details, and send me any kind of speaker names or future topic suggestions. So we would love to hear, feedback as well as any future suggestions. Also, just as a note, all the participants and all of you attendees right now are currently in the mute mode, and throughout this program, that mode will remain. So if you had any question for the speaker during the program, or if you wanted to let us know of anything, please do use the chat bar, the public chat bar that is available on the left-hand side of your screen, and you can send a note, and you can certainly send messages privately as well. But if there's any technical issue or anything, that you can certainly send it over there. We will be monitoring that chat bar for any questions. And wherever, if there's any questions during the program, I'm sure Justin will be happy to address some of them as we go along. At the end of the program, we will have a few minutes reserved for a full Q&A session as well. But in case there's no questions at that time, we do just sign off a little bit sooner, but there is that time as well that you can certainly use if you do not want to ask questions during the program. Let's see. Other than that, if there's any kind of technical assistance, you can certainly use the public chat bar, or you can just email me, and I will certainly respond. Also, for those of you, if some of you have just joined in only via the phone, then please note that the PowerPoint slides will be available only if you're also logged in via the computer. So we do encourage you for viewing the slides to log in via the computer as well. And the slides will be circulated after the program, so you will have a copy of the slides as well. All right, now it's my great pleasure to introduce you our speaker, Justin Farmer. Justin is a lawyer and a licensed real estate broker and entrepreneur. And after graduation from law school, Justin served as an assistant attorney general in Olympia, where he acted as in-house counsel to Washington's largest state agency. And also, he was providing advice to various business divisions within the organization. He's had several years of business law experience and extensive experience as a legal recruiter as well, and has mentored countless young professionals on the art of networking and career transitions. Justin devised this model that became Private Practice Transitions, Inc. himself, and this was around 2012. after I believe he had gone through this process himself in terms of an intended purchase. Justin has a combined passion for business, his entrepreneurial spirit, and his business experience, which have led him to form the private practice transitions. Again, do chime in, Justin, and we'll now hear from you about how to prepare the practice for sale from Justin.
Perfect.
So take it away, Justin.
Thank you, Shashi. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining on Thursday afternoon. Appreciate you being here. So like Shashi had mentioned, this presentation, the first time I gave it, typically I do it live, and I open up by saying this is meant to be as interactive as possible. So if you do have questions as we're going through a slide, if there's something in particular you're interested in hearing about, feel free to use that chat window. Ask your questions. I'll try and pick those up as we're going. Then I'll also open it up at the end for live chat. Either we'll unmute all attendees, or you can use that chat. We'll save the last few minutes for questions. So what we're going to talk about today, as you can see, is preparing your practice for sale and selling it. I think Shashi did a pretty good job of introducing me and kind of explaining the services that I provide. But what we'll be going through today is a pretty complicated process. Any given step along the way, we could spend multiple hours, if not days, talking about the different steps for preparing your practice for sale. But I'm going to hit on the high points and some real live examples that I've encountered since I started this business. Many of you, as you are considering either your own transition, buying or selling a practice, there are certain things that I want you to take away from this. And one of those is that, RPC 1.17 was amended in 2006 and actually allows for the sale of a private practice. And before 2006, solo and small firms weren't allowed to actually sell the practice. It was unethical. So many of the individuals who I'm talking to now, in their transition plan, hadn't actually thought about selling the practice because they didn't know they could. So with the changes to RPC 1.17, you kind of have the how-to, and that strategy is being implemented more and more. And I'm hoping to give everyone on the phone today some key points, some key takeaways, and feel free to reach out after the presentation if you have any more specific questions. What we'll cover today is what you need to get started. We'll spend a significant time on getting started, getting prepared for selling your practice. Due diligence, just like any deal, like selling a widget factory or any other type of business, you have to be prepared to do due diligence. So we'll discuss that. One of the most important things, I think, if you want to put a circle around what we'll be talking about today, is creating a timeline. You kind of create a timeline for when you want to transition and work backwards. So we talk about preparation, marketing, and negotiating, closing the deal. Then we'll talk about valuing your practice, what I'm seeing in the market, what type of value I'm seeing in my clients' practices right now, the deals that I've closed, what kind of multipliers that I've gotten so far. And again, this is a good time. If you had questions, you can jump in there as well. And then we'll close up with talking about identifying the ideal buyer or business partner. We'll talk more about why I have that as a buyer/partner. Structuring the deal, how to maximize return and kind of what you can expect when you are selling your practice. And finally, avoiding pitfalls that make deals fail, things that I've seen and things I've researched as growing this business. So hopefully you don't make the same mistakes of people that have gone before you. So jumping right in, what you need to get started. So there are some things that you have to think about that are ongoing. So starting now, even if you're thinking you're 5, 10, 20 years away from transitioning, is preparing your business to be sold should be an ongoing process, well before you ever sign up with a broker or actually start looking for a buyer. And there are many reasons for that. You have to think of your business as a brand. Can your business be sold? If you're a sole proprietor, your business is run through your Social Security number. You can't sell your Social Security number. You can do an asset sale, but oftentimes that might not be the best type of transition. So thinking about your business structure, thinking about how your books are, just in general, looking at your business, your practice as something that can be transferred. And so starting now, getting ready is important. And so it's an ongoing. In the longer term, you want to look at your team. So if you are a solo, obviously that becomes pretty simple. You're looking at yourself. But are there key members of your firm? Is associates? Is it a legal assistant or paralegal? Is it someone who is really an integral part of your practice? And if they were to leave, how would that impact your business? So making sure that you're thinking about how you're going to either retain those individuals via maybe incentive arrangements, non-competes, or some sort of bonus for staying on through the transition, and that sort of thing. Developing plans for growth. So what are you doing now to grow your business? Is your revenue stagnant? Is it declining? Is it increasing? Having those plans in place are pretty important. A business that has increasing revenue year over year sells for a higher multiplier than a business that has got stagnant or declining revenue. So in the longer term, and thinking about how are you going to grow the business. One of the things that I think is really important, I always try and talk to my clients early on in the process, is tax planning. I mentioned that briefly in the first point about preparing for sale, but what are the tax implications to the sale of your business? As I mentioned, if you're a sole proprietor, you can't really sell yourself. And what kind of entity do you have? And are you considering what the tax ramifications will be to you personally and to your business when you transition? And also estate planning. So these are all these components. I mean, there are many different components to preparing for your transition that you should think about now. In the nearer term, how are you going to do it? So do you have a team in place? You could be a business broker, your financial advisor, CPA. Those are all resources who can help you kind of put the puzzle pieces together. I would be grossly self-serving to say you should go with a broker, but I would say you should assemble a team. Going at this alone can be a very taxing process. There's many moving parts, and in addition to you running your own successful business. So getting a team in place to help you with this will do a number of things. Number one, will keep you from realizing deal fatigue. I know that many times individuals who try and go this alone while running their business either see their own health and sanity decline or the revenue of their business. I won't be able to tell you which one's worse, but I would say either one is not a good thing. So leveraging a team to make sure that they're doing parts of this for you is important. And also in the nearer term, as you're getting closer to selling, going back to that who's most pivotal and crucial for your business, stay on in similar arrangements with your either key management of the firm or key professionals like your bookkeeper or your paralegal can help with continuing the value of the business. And then begin assembling due diligence materials. That is tax returns, profit and loss statements, balance sheets, etc., so that when a buyer does come to the table and wants to actually see what your business is worth, that you have all those materials ready. File your taxes. Don't wait. Don't keep filing extensions. Get those things done, because by the time someone comes in, you want to have a packet ready for them. Because here's the key takeaway. It's in bold. Time kills all deals. So if someone comes to you and they're interested in buying your practice, you may not be the only person that they're looking at. So the longer you take to get them what they want, the more likely that the deal is going to die or they're going to go away. And also, the second point, surprises may not kill deals, but they destroy value. So if there's something you don't know or you don't share up front with a potential buyer of your business, it could harm the deal. It can make you look like you're hiding something, even though you may not have realized that. Or it could end up undercutting the value at which the buyer would have originally purchased your business. All right, so that's a good place to to ask if there are any questions so far. I don't see anyone jumping into chat, so I'll just keep going here. Due diligence. So I'm not sure how many individuals on the line are business attorneys who do transactional work, but due diligence is part of every transition of your business. The way that I work and the way that I coach my clients is your practice is not unlike a tech company or selling a widget factory or any type of other business. The value might be different, but the processes needed to sell your business are the same. And the biggest thing that kind of determines value and the timing of the transition of your business is due diligence, and that's your books. So I think that as I've talked to clients, some of them keep meticulous records in QuickBooks, have a CPA or bookkeeper auditing them diligently, and others don't. And for those that don't, it's not too late to start now. Typically, I'll give you an example. If you have a buyer who's going to be using some sort of third-party financing, typically the bank will ask for 3 years worth of finances, your profit and loss, balance sheet, and tax returns. But then to fund the loan, they need up-to-date financials for the last 6 months in general. So many of those things you can create in the year of your transition. You don't necessarily need to go back and create things in the past, but getting started now is important. As I mentioned here, it's an absolute must. And remember, your books are going to be wide open. So if there's something in there you don't want someone to see or you can't explain, you need to clean those up so you can. Oftentimes, my clients will be, like most small business owners, the other deductions, miscellaneous expenses, etc., maybe your car payment, your cell phone, repairs to your vehicle, whatever it might be. And that's fine. That's a distribution that you're taking, and that's value that you're taking out of the business. But being able to explain that is crucial. Just showing an expense with no explanation can decrease value when it should be increasing. It's actually something that you're taking out of the business. So yeah, you want to be able to show exactly how you make your money and how much you make. Because think about someone coming in to taking over the business. They want to know what their return on investment is going to be. If they're going to pay you X amount, $500,000 for your business, they want to know how much money they can take out in that first year, all things being considered. You also want to think about minimizing the amount of working capital needed to run your practice. So taking a hard look at staff, taking a hard look at your expenses, taking a hard look at efficiencies that can be added to increase the net income, increase the value of your business. And kind of last but not least is making sure your IELTS account is up to date. Typically, what I'm seeing is one of two things. A buyer will have their own IELTS account, and the seller will shut down their account and cut a check over with an itemized accounting of all the different matters that are within that IELTS account. But there are some times when you have a partnership buy-in or a stock purchase, in which case the IELTS account stays intact. So those are liabilities and questions that you don't want to be come as a surprise. Make sure that it's up to date, and that if you were to be audited by the WSBA, you'd fly with clear colors there. Any questions? I'll move on. All right. We talked about this. Create a timeline. I think the $1 million question is when. When and how long. And we're going to spend a lot of time here talking about timeline from my perspective. And there's two things you really need to think about. You need to think about pre-deal timeline, so how long it's going to take you to get ready and actually sign onto the line with the buyer to create a deal. So that's the pre-deal timeline. Excuse me. And then the post-deal timeline. How long are you going to stay involved? How long do you need to transition your business, and how long potentially will a buyer want you to stay involved? So some of the questions that I have you answer for yourself is, how many years do you want to practice? Are you done now? Are you thinking, I want to be done last year, find me a buyer? I have clients who have that answer. but maybe you want to practice for a couple more years. Maybe you're 5 years out. So that's a good question to ask yourself and then answer. How many more years do you need to practice? Now that's different. Many of my clients need a certain amount of income. They have a goal financially to be secure in retirement. So they need to work a few more years to have that income before they transition out and sell the practice. And then, post-deal, you have to think, okay, how long realistically, once I turn the reins over to someone, do I want to stay involved? And those are all things that if you're working with a broker, that you would create kind of a template for a potential buyer. So you come to the table and say, this is kind of what I'm thinking. I want to stay involved for this many more years, and after that, I will be of counsel, retired, sipping a Mai Tai in Mexico, whatever that might be. So this first slide, again, continuing on creating a timeline. This is the kind of the general timeline that I'm seeing. So once I start working with you, let's say you were to start your transition and you're working with a broker. Typically it takes, depending on how much due diligence and how much that preparation you've done up front, a month or two to get prepared. So that's gathering materials, getting your business ready to be marketed, creating a prospectus and that sort of thing. And then you market and advertise. So what I'm seeing right now, typically when I list a business with for one of my clients, within 30 to 40 days, actually much sooner than that oftentimes, I start getting interest. So what I like to tell my clients is, don't start marketing until you're ready to show everything. It's not a good idea to start marketing your business and have someone come to you and say, yeah, show me your financials. And you say, oh, give me some time. I need to put those together for you. That goes back to the previous slide with surprises and time kills all deals. You want to have everything that a potential buyer might want ready by the time you're ready to go on the market. So like I said, like I'm seeing typically after about 3 to 5 months, you'll have a certain amount of interest in your business. You might need to refine your search a little bit for a prospective buyer if you're not hitting the type of prospect that you were hoping for. And then within that 6 to 8 month range, that's when you start really vetting the buyer. You're meeting with the buyers, you're putting them through their paces, as it were, to get them approved for financing and that sort of thing. And then you got to think about how long it takes to close a transaction. If it's going to be a third-party finance transaction, SBA takes a minimum of 45 days to approve a loan, and private financing can be faster, but you have that time frame to work within. You also have to negotiate the deal, come up with the deal terms, and get it queued up for an actual closing date. What I'm seeing typically with the transition of my practice from start to finish when I'm working with someone, typically it's within the 8 to 10 month range, sometimes a little bit longer, that there'll actually be a deal on the books, so to speak, and then the transition will begin. I'm going into each of these in a little bit more detail. What I talked about as far as preparation, so collecting data on your practice. So where does your revenue come from? What type of practice do you have? Telling someone you're a general practitioner isn't going to be sufficient. Maybe you specialize in family law. Okay, great. What type of family law? Is it divorces? Is it dependency? What are you specializing in, and how much revenue is tied to each of those specialties? Whether you're doing probate and trusts and wills, but making sure that you can provide accurate data on your practice. It can be client metrics are really important. So how many clients you have, how much revenue you're getting within the practice groups, and how many clients you have on I call it on panel, but in your database or active. Those are all things that any buyer is really going to be interested in learning. And determine the value proposition that you're going to for the buyer. So what is it about your practice that's unique? Why would a buyer be interested? Maybe you are located in an area and you happen to be one of very few who specialize in Indian law. There are certain things about your practice that can increase value. So mentioning that. And then who do you anticipate being a good fit? One of the things that I talk about later in the slides, and I might mention now because I feel like I'm running along on time here, but is you're thinking about someone to take over your business. This isn't an employee. This isn't someone you've tried to hire in the past, but who will fit well within your business, who will interact well with your clients, who will maybe supplement what you've already provided, and do you want them to be a firm? Is it another solo? Is it a group of individuals? And what does that look like? Determining who they are so that you can actually strategically target them. And then determine and implement your marketing strategy. How are you going to advertise? Are you going to use third-party resources? Are you going to do advertising? Are you going to just reach out to your own network? These are all things that you should consider and put into place. And then the last kind of thing for preparation is preparing what I call a listing memorandum and other marketing materials. Typically, I put together something like a 10 to 12-page listing memorandum that has all of this synthesized, and it's kind of like your prospectus. It gives enough information to bring the buyers in and get them interested, get the meeting at the table, so to speak, and then that's when you continue the conversation. And one thing I advocate and require, I would think that everyone on this phone, if you're working in deals, you're well versed, but making sure you have an NDA in place before you ever share anything. There's no handshake and nods in these type of transactions. You need to have an NDA in place to protect yourself from someone who's trying to potentially poach your business. Regarding marketing, so again, you can see this kind of timeline, but as you develop and implement your marketing strategy, you'll be contacting buyers and having them fill out NDAs. That typically takes a little bit of time to get the buyers kind of vetted in that way. Circulate your listing memorandum, so keeping track of who has it. I typically mark copies, and so that way you know who has a copy. And if for some reason that copy were to surface somewhere else, you know that your buyer, Joe, didn't keep it so confidential. And then discussing any questions and answer they might have. Oftentimes, this questions and the discussions turn around a few key points. Your timeline as a seller, how long you want to stay involved, how many clients you have, and revenue. And I think in order of importance, revenue is probably up there as number one. It doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So you really have to be able to answer questions about your revenue, where your money's coming from, and then about your clients, and how many are going to stay involved, what are you going to do to make sure goodwill is transferred, that sort of thing. And then once you've kind of vetted the buyers and you've gotten them through all that question and answer session, you obtain what I call a letter of intent. It's typically non-binding, but it's an offer. It's an offer to purchase your business with certain terms. The way that I like to work, and I'm not sure if this is a novel concept, but typically within the confidential listing memorandum, you have almost an outline of what you want them to put in their LOI. What your ideal deal structure would be, the terms for a cash sale, the terms for a seller partial finance sale, interest rate, how long the term will be, what you require as a down payment, how long you will stay involved as a mentor and or as a consultant or of counsel, those sort of things. So thinking about all those up front can really streamline and move this process along. As far as refining the search, as you receive the letters of intent, the more offers, the better, and don't necessarily kind of ask for a bidding war or anything like that, but being candid with prospective buyers that you may have more interest than just them is a good thing. Again, there's no surprise, but it also shows that you're negotiating in good faith. Arranging a meeting with prospects, typically, if you engage a third party, typically like a broker, they'll vet the the buyers first. They'll meet them. They'll kind of pre-qualify them for financing and that sort of thing. And by the time you're meeting that potential buyer, they've already been vetted as a qualified prospect. And then, kind of supporting due diligence. Again, if someone is interested in looking at your business and they've signed an LOI, there'll be a due diligence kind of phase where they'll have a timeline to come and look at your books and conduct the due diligence that they need to feel confident about moving forward. And then, the final offers, receiving final offers, that's always the end goal. And so once you receive the final offers, that's when you go to contract and start negotiating the terms. So hopefully by the time and the way that as you're putting this together, by the time you receive a final offer, it's really the terms of the arrangement have already been negotiated. You should really get to the point where both sides are, just hammering out the final legalese. And since we're all attorneys on the phone, what I always advocate is don't represent yourself in these transactions. It's pretty hard to be unbiased and unemotional, I guess. And so having, again, as you're creating that team, having someone who understands the transition of a service business on your team is important, so that by the time you're ready to accept a final offer, you can turn over the drafting of the final documents to someone who will do a great job and won't shoot themselves in the foot. Can't represent yourself. I mean, you can, but I wouldn't recommend it. All right, so
Justin.
This is.
Hey, Justin.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I just had a quick question here. You mentioned about, the timeline that potentially, seller can still be involved, as in, like, with either in a consulting form or whatever. What is the typical timeline that you've been seeing? Like, are people mostly involved, like, a year or so out after the transaction, or even longer? And I don't know, maybe this is jumping ahead to your pitfalls section.
No.
But what is, like,
no, that's
a good,
fine. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, and I'm going to provide a lawyerly answer, which everyone is probably mouthing right now. It depends. Every transaction I've been a part of has been different. I've had clients who were ready to turn the keys over and walk out, and in some ways they did, but even then, I'm just kind of going through the deals in my head. That individual, I'm thinking about, meets with the buyer every Wednesday for 2 hours, but is also available by phone whenever they need them. So typically what I'm seeing is a mentor-mentee relationship is formed, whether it's formal, the seller's in the office for a prearranged period of time. What I've seen is my clients are typically really invested in making sure that the goodwill is transferred and that the buyer is successful. It's their legacy. They want to make sure that their clients are taken care of and the business continues to grow. So, and that's kind of the unwritten. You don't really write mentorship into this type of agreement, but it comes with the territory. I think that many times my clients want to stay involved. They want to stay involved, but they don't want to be in the way. So they're willing to work and stay involved as long as possible, depending on the total deal structure. Some of that is included in the purchase price, and some of it becomes, they're paid as a counsel or a consultant or that sort of thing. But it really depends on how long the buyer wants them to be involved, but how long my client wants to be involved. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
But if you were to say pin me down and give you a timeline, I would typically say a year after is reasonable, because you just think about if you have a practice of 35 years and you have 2,000 clients and 150 that you're billing monthly, it takes a little bit of time to get the new buyers in, get them acclimated, introduce them to all the clients, send out kind of what I call its notice, depending on the RPC 1.17. The structure of the deal kind of dictates what kind of notice is provided, but either way, I always advocate make it a positive PR, really exciting type of notice to everyone, all of your clients, and have them come and meet the new owners and make it a chance to grow the revenue. And I'll talk about deal structure later, but oftentimes the deals that we negotiate have incentives built into them based on revenue. So the more revenue the firm makes over the period of time, the more my clients get. So.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, talking about negotiating closing, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. This is just kind of getting more granular into what I mean by the timeline. But I like to use this slide to mention the negotiating and close. The way that I advocate and the way that I strongly suggest in order for these deals to work out well is going into negotiation in the spirit of collaboration, not competition. You know, if you are competing with the other side, this deal will never get done. I think it's hard sometimes for us as lawyers to kind of, bifurcate ourselves and not be super competitive and try and win. But if you try and win with this type of deal, like I mentioned just a second ago, you might as well walk away. You have to be a win-win for everybody. And so going in very collaborative, open-minded. I'm not saying you need to, reveal your hand by any means, but being willing to be flexible, listening to the other side, because you're going to be partnering with this person as they're buying your business. If you have to feel like you're winning, and they have to feel like they're winning, and that's how these deals get done. So as you're going through and you're evaluating offers and you're negotiating, maybe there are terms that you're firm on, and you're very clear, like, I have to have this, but I don't really particularly care. These are certain things that I'm willing to give on. But being very upfront and honest with your negotiations can go a long way. So I'm gonna kind of move forward from there, because I think everyone's waiting for this slide. So how do you value your practice? Is there any questions on kind of timeline, or did I beat? Can someone type into the chat? You beat that to death. Move on. I don't see anyone saying that, but I'll do it anyway. So valuing your practice, the $1 million question: how much is your business worth? Well, I'm not a licensed, certified business valuation expert. I don't hold a certificate in business valuation, but I've done a fair amount of research and talked, and I have quite a few colleagues who do. And so there are a couple of different things that I've gleaned through my own interactions with them and as they've done valuations for my clients. It's part science, part math, and part art. The science and the math part of it, I got down. The art is, depending on who's doing the valuation, they can really move the ball a little bit. But there are a couple different things to think about for the value of your business. Number one is the goodwill value. That's maybe more the art side of things, but how many clients do you have? How many clients do you have? Do you have a database? I have clients who have 3,500 discrete entities or individuals in their database. That is a large amount of marketing to be had for a new buyer. Once they own the practice and they provide the notices and that sort of thing, they can be marketing and mushrooming and really cultivating those relationships and trying to grow the business. Oftentimes, what I'm seeing with my clients and buyers who are coming in is the job value. People don't want to work for the huge corporations and firms and toil away. They want to have a job value. There's a dearth in good jobs in the market right now. So you have attorneys, young professionals who are looking for a chance to be their own boss, to own something, to grow something, and so there's real value there. I was working with a client who had a buyer that was paying well over the valued market rate. They did an independent valuation, and they were willing to pay a premium because they really wanted this third point, the mentorship. They wanted to work with my client. My client had a great reputation, has a great reputation, and they just wanted to be a part of that firm. And so they're willing to pay more for what they saw was job value and mentorship. And then also, the turnkey nature of your operation. I mean, this all goes into the valuation of your business. Can someone step in and just start running the firm? Do you do trusts, wills, or family law? Are you form driven? Do you have staff who can really queue up most matters for a new attorney so that they can, learn very quickly and ramp up really quickly. So do you have infrastructure in a lease, or do you own your building? There are all those things that go into valuing your practice that can really increase the purchase price. I'm going to pause right there to see if anyone has any questions about valuing the practice, and then I'm going to keep going. There's more. Any questions so far?
I think we're looking fine. There's not any questions, Justin. So yeah,
okay.
You can go ahead. Yep.
Perfect. Yes. And I didn't really answer a whole lot right there about how you value your practice, but I can give you some numbers if for those who are taking note. I promise this will be the only statistic. For kind of that turnkey operation and the job value, 46% of U.S. millennials, those are going to be the people who are buying your business, they want to start their own business, but only 8% have done so. And only 11% have any plan to do so within the next year. Basically, millennials don't know necessarily how to start their business, and they sure as heck don't know how to buy a business. And so as I'm talking to buyers, if they say to me, well, I don't know how to finance it, I don't know how I'm going to get the money, if that's their only concern, then I say we can make the deal done. There are resources. There's the SBA, there's financing, but people just don't inherently know how to buy and sell businesses. So it's really important to understand that you have a pretty large market of prospective buyers. Just how do you tap into them? And then the next number I'll give you, kind of on average what I'm seeing, the value of a law practice, kind of that mathematical component to the one part art, one part science, one part math, is in generally seeing a multiplier of revenues, kind of where you start. So you look at your gross revenue. If you are declining or seeing year-over-year kind of stagnation, you can be on the lower end of the range. If you're seeing year-over-year growth, you're on the higher end of the range, and somewhere between a multiplier of 0.8 to about 1.5. So again, if you're good at math, take your gross revenue, multiply it by 1.2, 1.3, and you can kind of get a range of what you might be able to expect when you take your practice to market. And again, if anyone on the phone on the webinar today is interested in having a valuation, or even I do kind of like an informal appraisal and take a look at things about your business and provide that, or I can provide you with resources for actual formal evaluation. All right, so how are you going to identify a buyer or business partner? I think this is kind of where you can do all the due diligence, and you can prepare your business to be sold, and you can have a value, and you're ready to market, and you say, I don't know how to identify someone or how to vet them. So there are a couple things to think about. And again, this kind of goes back to having spent some time as a recruiter. There's a difference between finding someone who you're going to hire and who's going to work for you, and finding someone who's going to be you. You want someone who's going to be the owner of your business, who has the ability to run and hopefully, depending on your deal terms, grow your business so that your legacy continues. So it's really important to, as you're going out to market, looking at individuals differently. So you're not looking at that attorney there as a potential employee, because, in some ways, an employee who can run a business might, if you're looking at an employee and they're too, boisterous, or they're too confident, or they're too, have too many ideas, whatever it is, you might think, oh, I don't want them as an employee. But you wait a minute, that person would be great to run my business. So as I've given this presentation, I oftentimes look into the crowd and I see people going, oh, yeah, that's a really good point. I kind of see the light bulb turning on. You're not looking for an employee. You're looking for a business partner or someone to take over and run your business. So how are you going to find them? What I do is kind of unique, but oftentimes you can look at your network, look at the young attorneys that you've seen in court or you've known over the years. Maybe it's there's another firm that you have synergy with that similar practice or supplemental or kind of augment your practice, and maybe you can move in as of counsel. There's different ways to identify a buyer or partner, but you just have to kind of think about it, write it down, and then implement it. And some of the questions to ask yourself is, what type of person or persons would work best for your clients? I've had clients who had, probate, trust, and estate practice, but never really did tax. And so finding someone who might be able to add that tax component would also be a good fit, because you could add another practice area, that sort of thing. And then how are you going to search? You're going to use social media. You got to think that many of your potential buyers are going to be millennials or those that are ingrained in more social media and that sort of thing. And so how are you going to reach your target audience, but remain confidential? So there's ways to advertise confidentially. There are listservs. You can advertise on business brokerage websites that are kind of like the MLS for real estate, but for businesses. And so those are all things to think about as you're marketing your and trying to find a buyer. Structuring the deal. So there are pretty much there are 2 or 3 ways that I see deals getting done. Some have more favorable tax consequences depending on your tax bracket and the entity that you have formed. But you'll have either an asset purchase, a purchase and sale, kind of structured as an asset purchase, a partnership buy-in, which is oftentimes a stock purchase if you are an S corp, or a merger. So depending on the type of firm you have, the size of your firm, and kind of what you want, as we're going back to preparing up front, what you want to get out of the transition, that's kind of the first step. What kind of structure you open to? If you're like, there's no way I want to do a merger, or no way I want to do an asset sale, then you need to lead with that. Another thing to consider might be self-explanatory, but seller financing is likely, quote unquote, more money. I mean, if you carry some financing, you bear more of the risk, then you can demand a higher price over the life of the note, the promissory note. Oftentimes I'll have my clients come up with, what is your cash price? If someone were to come at closing with cash and buy you out right now, what is that number? And conversely, what would that be if you're financing? Typically, you'll see with a cash price, oftentimes, some will have third-party financing is what I mean by cash price. Typically, you'll get 80% of your asking price, and about 20 or 25% will either be a carryback note that's subordinate to like an SBA loan or some sort of down payment or something like that. If you're financing it yourself, or you're doing it, then oftentimes it's the flip side. So you'll get like a 20 or 25% down with a 75 or 80% note that you're carrying. Now those are just in general terms, but think about the structure of the deal, and then also be prepared to have maybe slightly different prices. Offer a discount for more cash up front. And I say walk away point. This is kind of knowing your settlement authority. When I was at Shashi mentioned I advised DSHS and most of their business functions. Whenever I was preparing to negotiate or try and work with them on a contract, always ask them what the settlement authority is. What can I take and you'll be happy and we can just get her done. And so knowing what your point is. Oftentimes I can, or as you're negotiating, you're going to get what you asked for. So don't be afraid to, take it and walk away. And I think I mentioned this, the structuring alternative, stock purchase, the merger asset purchase. But then also thinking about, non-competes, kind of what is going to happen after. So after you've sold the business, it is almost a certainty that there will be a non-compete structured into the deal. No attorney is going to want you to go and hang a shingle somewhere and start competing with them. Oftentimes there'll be some sort of counsel relationship. that can help with things like malpractice insurance. One of the considerations we don't mention today, but is tail insurance, and as you retire, making sure that you're covered for past acts. And the deal might also have some sort of employment or consulting arrangement. That's where maybe those additional incentives come in, where you not only are helping with transferring of goodwill, but maybe if the firm grows by 20% year over year, whatever the terms are, you get a nice incentive bonus each year based on the firm's performance. All right, just a couple more slides here, and then we can open up for questions. Pitfalls to avoid. There are many different pitfalls that you can come with almost every transaction. There are a few here that I've seen and kind of preempted with my clients as I work with them. But second guessing yourself is, I think, the big one. You as a business owner, someone who's run a practice for a period of years, I could run a poll and see how many people are solos and two-person firms, but just speaking generally, you're going to get sentimental. You're going to feel a little bit, am I making the right decision? What next? But if you've done your homework, you've prepared, you've set your timeline, you have that walk away, that transition point where you want to be retired, don't second guess yourself. Go with it. You've already done the homework. As you're moving down this line, it can be stressful because you're thinking about, wow, this is actually happening. But prepare yourself for that and be ready to keep moving forward because you're making the right decision. Disregarding the settlement authority. I would like to say I've never had a client do this to me, but I have. I've got a client a deal that was pretty amazing and everything that they wanted, and they came back in the 11th hour and said they wanted more. And to me, all that was they're going back up to, number one, second guessing themselves. They weren't ready to transition, and so effectively tried to sabotage the deal by asking for more money. And then this might seem a little redundant, but I'm kind of hammering it home. Being afraid to let go. You have to be prepared to let go. And if you can't let go and you can't transition out, then don't waste your time and your team's time in going through this process, because ultimately, if you come out at the end and you're still there, you might be worse for the wear. And not giving yourself enough time. I haven't turned away any clients at this point, but I have talked to clients who have unreasonable expectations for timeline. They want to be done in a couple months or 3 months, and that's just not feasible. Even if I worked only on your deal for nonstop every day, it's very difficult to prepare your business to be sold, market it, vet a buyer, and close in less than 6 to 9 months. Retiring in place, nice acronym in there, RIP. Don't retire in place. If you want to transition your business, going back to that growth plan all the way at the beginning, the ongoing and longer term, making sure your business is growing is incredibly important to maximizing value. Now, there's also nuisance value. I've worked with clients who have retired in place and their revenues are half of what they used to be. I actually got an offer today for one of my clients whose business is about 50% of what it was 4 years ago. So there is still value in your practice, but there's just not as much. So if you retire in place, expect that your return is going to go down as you do so. And not understanding the market. So I think that in general, that's developing a team. Understanding kind of the whole the big picture, I guess. Understanding how you're going to sell, timeline, interest rate, getting all that team together. But thinking that you're just going to, launch into the market and sell your business without having done any preparation, that can really harm the value of your firm. And I would say avoid that at all costs. It's so funny. I feel like I already mentioned that, and that was purposeful. Don't be afraid to let go. this is, you're going to be sentimental. I'd say be prepared. I actually have for my clients, I have a post-transition counselor that I have reached out to for that client who in the 11th hour was trying to sabotage the deal. I actually referred the counselor or my client to the counselor, and the person was there to help them talk about what's next. What's next, the next phase of their career, the next phase of their life. Are they going to, what are they going to do once they've sold their business? Because this is a real thing. People who run a business for a long time get lost in the identity of I'm the business is me, and if I sell the business, who am I? And so I think, again, as part of what we're talking about today, I think you got to realistically look at yourself and say, how am I going to feel when I sell my business? And do you need to talk to someone about what you're going to do next? Some of my clients have pro bono work they're going to do. Some of them like to travel. They have grandkids coming, whatever it is. But making sure that you're prepared for when you're retired. And again, that's not something that I'm not a counselor as far as being able to help you with developing that plan. But I have resources. Again, if that's something that's ringing true to you as I'm talking about it, I'm happy to share those resources with you individually, so feel free to reach out. And finally, going it alone, there are a lot of resources. The WSBA has resources on its website. You can look at kind of the resources there for buying and selling, valuation, that sort of thing. There's a business broker I know. If you're really interested and you need a business broker, contact me and I'll put you in touch with them. His name's Justin Farmer. And your personal network. Who do you trust? Who do you know? You can reach out to them and test the waters. Say, I'm thinking about transition. Would you be interested, or do you know someone who? But again, don't go it alone. It can be difficult. And I'm going to share a story. I actually had someone reach out to me prior to this who was supposed to be on the webinar. I don't actually see that person on the webinar now. Shashi, after you told me not to send slides ahead of time, I don't think that person actually came through. Apologize. But he reached out because he was buying a business, a practice. And I said, okay, I'm happy to help and talk to you. And he said he's buying it for a third of what I would have gotten my client had they used my service. The revenue was about $400,000, and he was buying it for right around $100,000. I was shocked. He's getting a great deal, but the person who's selling, I kind of almost jokingly told him, I hope your seller doesn't come to my presentation because I don't think you're going to get that price if he does. So, again, knowing what your business is worth is 99% of the battle. But if you don't have a team to kind of help you, and you might be undervaluing your business without ever knowing it. And with about a minute and 30 seconds left before questions, we are at questions. So I don't see any questions. I hope everyone's not sleeping on the webinar here. Shashi, did you want to switch it over to open Q&A, or we can give it a minute and see if anyone types any questions here?
Oh, sure. And we can do, let's see, I'm actually looking for that. And I did have a question in that second as well. So anyway, while I'm looking for that, opening it up to Q&A, let me just also quickly pitch in my question here. And that is, you talked about if anybody is a seller is either already doing, say, lesser of whatever they had done in the past. And you also mentioned somewhere that, there are certain financials that are given. So I guess my question is just, can they give, financials of, the heydays or whatever it is, even if they've reduced to part-time now for various other reasons? And is that part of the, marketing materials and things like that? And how far back? I think you mentioned maybe rule of thumb of 3 years.
Yeah. So typically 3 to 5 years is 5 years is more than sufficient snapshot to show what the business has done. Now, I'm candid with my clients. I say if years 5 and 4 and 3 were a lot better than 2 and 1, then maybe we want to go back 5. But generally speaking, the last 3 years show what the business is doing now. Now, sharing let's say that they had ramped back.
All attendees are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing *6.
Oh, sorry about that. I guess I just pressed it.
No, so now everyone can pipe in now. If you hit *6 on your phone or whatever device you're on, you can actually ask a question live for everyone attending. I mean, I think for financing purposes, it won't matter. If they're going third-party financing, the bank doesn't care what you did 10 years ago. They care what you did last year and then in the last 6 months. But for value, actually valuing the business, typically 3 to 5 years is, and even 3 years is really the indicator for law practice of how healthy the business is. But as you're marketing it, I would say that maybe you say, I stopped accepting, or maybe you start referring out all of your family law litigation, but you still get a ton of it. You still get it in, and you're referring it out, and you have some sort of fee arrangement with some other firm. You could still say, I'm only getting, a quarter of that, or just a taste of this referral, but if I would turn it back on, this is what it looks like 5 years ago when I had it all. I was making another $150,000 or something. So those are things that you could put in if you actually have something of substance. But just saying, well, I used to do more, but since I've ramped down, I don't. Yeah, it's not all that helpful, other than to say, be illustrative to, you could do more. I've just been ramping down. I used to do X, and you could still use that as you can do more. But I would just say, be prepared for that not to make much difference in the value, but it can help you sell it as an upside when someone buys.
Okay, that's helpful to know. I'm not seeing anything posted, but again, everyone, we can be online for a couple more minutes if folks want to, if you have any burning questions for an incredibly wonderful and informative webinar here. It's been definitely a great, a lot of information passed on, but I hope it wasn't too overwhelming or anything. But we're still online here for a couple minutes, so hopefully folks will chime in if they found it equally informative.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll hang on for a few minutes if anyone has questions. Also, Shashi, will everyone have my email address, or if they want to contact me offline?
Yeah, both in the instructions that went earlier in the login instructions, they'll have it. And then right after this, and for folks who, if you're still online, you will be receiving the PowerPoint as well, right? As soon as we hang up over here, I'll be sending that out. So you can feel free to contact Justin directly with any questions, or certainly feel free to shoot an email to me if you need any, either another copy if you're unable to open the PowerPoint, what have you, or if there's any problems reporting the CLE. Again, it should be all automatic, but feel free. You can always email me. The other thing, again, I guess since I'm not seeing any questions here, I'm going to just go ahead and sort of wrap up here and just let you know that you will be taking, there's a couple just survey questions just on the content and the speaker, and we would really appreciate if you can take a minute or so just to complete that. That'll be automatic as soon as we log out here, and you should be able to get that pop up. Again, like I mentioned earlier when we started, we would love for feedback on both, just content, generally topics, any kind of future topic suggestions, and of course, if you would love to be a speaker or presenter at any one of these sessions, we do offer these monthly, and so we would love to be able to, offer on more topics that might be of interest. So please do not hesitate to email me if you have any suggestions. Seeing no more further questions, I'm going to just take the opportunity to thank you, Justin. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for the presentation. And I'm sure folks will still be in touch with you if they have any questions after this. And really appreciate your time. All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
So much
Thanks,
for
everyone.
attending today. Yep. And I'll be just logging off here. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.